welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. And today I'm gonna do a Am I an A-hole video. So if you guys don't know, on Reddit there's a little channel that's basically Am I the A-hole, and people post their stories on there for people to say if they are or are not the a-hole. And a lot of people read these stories on YouTube and then decide for themselves if they think these people are or are not the a-hole, and then they explain why they think that way. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I have my laptop here, I have Reddit that's open, so without further ado, let's get started. So the first one is, am I the a-hole for not apologizing to my friend after she screamed at me and my kid at her wedding? 2 weeks ago, I, F29, hubby, male 31, and son, male 4, attended my best friend's female 28 wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony and everything was going great until best friend and her husband cut the cake. Important context, best friend did speak to me during her wedding planning about being unsure on whether or not to allow kids at her wedding. Her 2 sisters both have kids around son's age and she sees him as her nephew too, but she wanted to be able to let loose and enjoy her wedding without worrying about any kids messing things up. I gave her my opinion, saying me and hubby allowed kids at her wedding and wouldn't have it any other way. The kids were still family and deserved to be included. After that, in speaking with her sisters, she and her husband okayed kids for the wedding. Now, the ceremony went swimmingly. Best friend's nieces sat with me, hubby, and son as her sisters were in the bridal party. I brought quiet kids activities to keep them entertained and everybody behaved. I even cried from how lovely it was. When we got to the reception, nieces were returned to their parents, so it was now just me, hubby, and son. Dinner went fine, and then the couple took to the dance floor for their first dance. Afterwards, everybody was welcome to the floor to dance for a bit before cake cutting. At this point, the kids were running around and playing with each other, and it was a fairly secured space, and I knew almost everybody there. So I felt comfortable with son playing with the other kids while hubby and I had fun dancing. Important to mention now, hubby offered to DD so I could enjoy myself, so I had a couple glasses of wine at this point. Best friend had also been drinking and celebrating. Best friend and her husband got to do cake cutting, and hubby and I are a little slow getting there, so there was a crowd blocking our view. Suddenly I hear best friend scream son's name. Hubby and I push forward to see what's wrong. I see my son with frosting around his mouth and on his fingers. The cake had a small chunk taken out of it. I try to apologize, but best friend turns around and yells, "This is your fault. Your son ruined my cake. He's only here because of you told me it would be worth it to include the kids," I yelled back, telling her that it was just an accident and the rest of the cake was still edible, that this was her nephew she was screaming about. She told me I was no friend of hers and he wasn't her nephew. In front of everyone, she told me to leave or she'd call security. Son and I were crying at that point and the 3 of us left. One of the bride's sisters reached out to me after and apologized for her sister's reaction but said I needed to apologize. I think sorries are out of the window now after her outburst. I told her sister so and said I accept an apology first before I'd say anything to her. Not only did she blow up at me in front of everyone, but at my son. I'm humiliated but even more angry on his behalf. So am I the a-hole if I refuse to apologize first? I think this person is the a-hole. So first of all, her friend came to her for advice to see, hey, how would it be to have kids at my wedding? Like, what do you think about that? And she said yes. And she was one of the people with kids that, she was bringing kids to the wedding. And then proceeds to not supervise her kid. And it was her kid who took a big bite out of the cake. Were you not supervising your kid? Girl, it is your kid. You should be supervising your kid. If she was supervising her kid, none of that would have ever happened. None of that would have ever went down. So yes, she is the a-hole. She needs to apologize for not watching her kid and letting herself get slightly tipsy because she wanted to have fun, even though she knows she has a kid there and had responsibilities. I don't care that your husband wasn't anywhere near tipsy and wasn't really drinking so he could watch the kid a little bit more. You're both the parents. You're both at fault. I mean, the mom is at fault, but the dad's also at fault, especially with the fact that she did mention that she was drinking and the dad wasn't, so that she could have fun. So both of them are at fault. Still. She's still at fault. Doesn't matter. It's your kid. You birthed it. It's your kid still at the end of the day. Anyways, you're in charge of the kid. So yes, she is the a-hole. Moving on. Am I the a-hole for reminding my ex I'm only responsible for our children and not all of his kids? My ex-husband, 40 male, and I, 35 female, have 2 children together, 12 and 11 male. We divorced about 10 years ago now because I feel like he regressed as a husband and a father during my second pregnancy, and he was even worse when our younger son was born. He was acting like a high school or college kid or a single 20-something with no kids. He spent more time with friends than with us. His friends were also treating me more like his mom and expected me to pick him up from their houses when they needed to get on with stuff. He fought for 50% custody of our kids, which he wasn't given, and for the first 2 or 3 years, he had every other weekend and a 2-week period during the summer with them as well as alternating holidays. He started being more involved, and eventually he did get 50% custody. It was at that time I found out he got some woman pregnant, and he realized with 3 kids he needed to get his act together. He ended up with full custody of his 3rd child. Then he met his wife. They have 2 more children together now. There are 2 kids in her life, but I don't believe they're her biological children anyway, who she is also partially supporting. Those 2 kids don't live with them, but apparently she/they pay for the stuff for this child. Ex and I started getting along better, but then his marriage was rocky. As his marriage worsened, he started treating me like a co-parent to all his kids. He is bringing his other children to custody exchanges and expecting interactions between me and his other children. Then it was requests to babysit for him and his wife, which I never did. Then it was comments about our boys' old clothes at my house being sent to his house for his other kids and how we needed to make sure they had adequate clothing. I told him there was no we in that, and he said, of course there is. We're co-parents. I said of our 2, sure, but not his other kids. It was requests for me to have his children in my home or to take them out to eat with me and our kids. And finally, it has turned into back to school craziness. I bought supplies for the boys, and he told me I hadn't bought nearly enough for everyone. I was like, hold up, what's that supposed to mean? And he pointed out that what I bought wouldn't be possible to share evenly between all 5 children. I told him we don't have 5 children, we have 2, the 2 I bought those for. I told him I am responsible for our children, not his 3 others. I told him he has a wife, they share 2 of those children, the other is in their home, so it's up to them. He told me that I know they don't have a lot of money, and I cut him off and told him that still didn't make his children my problem. He said I can't possibly take care of just 2 of them, not when we're co-parenting and all 5 kids live together 50% of the time. He said I should be a part of the community to help raise these kids, and keeping my distance like I do is so dang cold. Am I the a-hole? No. This mom is not the a-hole here. The dad is, because the 2 kids are her children. The other 3 are not. She didn't birth the other 3. She didn't adopt the other 3. Like, those are not her children. She did not decide to go do the, devil's tango with another woman and then proceed to marry another woman who had 2 other children. She didn't make those decisions. He did. That was his decision. She made the decision to do the devil's tango and have 2 kids with that guy. So yeah, she's taking responsibility for those 2 kids because that are her 2 kids, and she's doing a great job. But she doesn't have to take care of the other 3 that this man supposedly decided to have. Well, he decided to have one of them, the other 2 he decided to marry with a woman who already had these 2 children. That's his responsibility, that's his choice. It's a him problem, not a her problem. He's gonna have to figure out where to get this money, not her. It's not for her to try to figure out like where to get this money because it's not her children. So no, she's not the a-hole. She's in the right. Don't support him because he doesn't deserve it. He can find it somewhere else. It's his problem, not hers. Next one. Am I the a-hole for convincing my sisters change her baby's name? This is my first time posting on Reddit after a long time lurking on mobile, so sorry for any typos. My sister, 19 female, announced to the family that she and her boyfriend were pregnant a few months ago. She immediately followed it up with the names she'd chosen. Tyler, if it was a boy, after the father, or Savory, if it was a girl, pronounced Savory. Apparently, she liked the name Avery, but wanted to make it unique, hence the extra letter. Obviously, this is a terrible name for a baby, and I politely asked if they were considering any other names. She said no, that they'd already decided. My sister and I aren't really close, so I decided to let it be and congratulated her. A while later, my sister announced that they were definitely having a girl and that little Savory was healthy so far. At this point, I decided to become more involved with my sister since this was going to be my first niece or nephew. But I couldn't stop thinking about the poor kid getting teased for her name. My sister had untreated BPD, and any direct challenge to her decisions always escalated to a huge blowout, so I had to play my cards carefully. I got her a specific baby name book from my mom, the very same book our mom had gotten both of our names from. She loved this gift, and we spent all night eating snacks and going through it. That night, I opened up about my concerns for the name she'd chosen and the bullying that might come from it, which she was receptive to, because we've both been bullied in school. Over the next few weeks, I said things like, oh, this would be a cute name, or I saw the coolest list of names on Pinterest. My sister loved some of the names, and finally, after all of that, she announced that she had settled on the name Mango instead, taken from the baby name book. I was overjoyed at having saved my niece from a life of being named the way someone would describe a steak. Shortly afterwards, I got a text from my sister's boyfriend, who I didn't really know at all because he was never home when I was there, calling me all sorts of terrible things for getting involved in his family. I asked what he was talking about, and he continued to cuss me out because he chose the name Savory and I had no right to change it. I pointed out that I was only interested in the well-being of my niece and that my sister was my family, so I had a right to an opinion. This man had the nerve to tell me that I was an idiot, that I didn't know anything about family since I was still single despite being older than both of them. I pointed out that I clearly wasn't the dumbest one in the conversation since I didn't try to name my daughter after a literal piece of meat. Now my sister is angry at me for getting involved and calling her boyfriend stupid, even though he said much more hurtful things in his text to me. Am I the a-hole? I don't think she is the a-hole. I don't think Mango was a better name either, but we're not going to get in the names right away. She's not the a-hole because she clearly saw what would happen with this name. She could clearly see all the rude comments, all the kids teasing and whatever. When I first read this, I read Savory as slavery. So I can clearly see where this is gonna go. Our brains can, like, before you read, like, a word, it can determine what this word's gonna be. So, like, if you haven't seen those TikToks or, like, posts, sometimes it's gonna, like, say, like, duck or whatever. And then you'll just, like, quickly read the thing, and they'll say, you read that wrong, because you read it as the F word. And then when you reread it, you're like, oh, it says duck. And so your brain can automatically kind of like decide what that word is gonna be, and like I can see people reading that as slavery, and this girl would definitely get teased about it all the time. I didn't know that Savory was a piece of meat. I wasn't aware of that, but I was aware about the whole slavery thing, and I was a little concerned about that. If she likes Avery, she could go with Avery. Just go with Avery. Just be basic. It's fine. Being basic is okay. So, no, the sister here is not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for sending my youngest to stay with my parents? My wife died last year from cancer, and I can't say I'm handling it well. My oldest two are doing okay-ish, even though they're having their own problems, but my youngest, Carter, 15 male, is taking it particularly bad. He and his mom were really close, him being the baby and all. Over the last few months, he quit football and wrestling. He'd been making himself sick on purpose, drinking and taking his mom's old pain meds. He's skipping class, and now he's sneaking boys in and out the house all the time, at all times of the night. I work and I can't keep an eye on him all the time. Last week, I caught one of my senior players jumping out his window, and I just got fed up. I arranged it with my parents, and I told him he was going to stay with his grandparents, who are both retired, over the school year. He was pissed and accused me of abandoning him. I told him it was for his own good. He just started crying and saying he wished I was the one that died. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, he's the a-hole. That dad is the a-hole, because what was this dad thinking? It is your kid. You should take responsibility of your child. And it's not just the fact of taking responsibility. If this was any other circumstances, I'd been like, okay, that's fine. But his mother died. Whoa, his mother died, and now you're going to make him lose another parent by sending him to his grandparents? You're going to act like you died too, because if you died too, he'd be sent to his grandparents. That's more likely what would happen. But his dad did not die. His dad is still very much well and alive. I get it, it's hard because your wife just passed away and you don't want to deal with a troubled teen, but I am sorry, you chose to have this kid 15 years ago. You need to man up and take responsibility for your child who just lost his mom. Your relationship with your wife is completely different than the relationship your son had with his mom. The bond in between a child and a mother is so different to any bond that has ever existed. So your bond that you had with your wife is very different, and the grief that you're feeling towards the wife's death is very different than what your son is feeling. You need to man up, take responsibility, and take care of your own goddamn child. Do not send him to his grandparents who did not birth this child. You need to be there for your child because he already lost a parent. He doesn't need to lose another one. So yes, that dad is the a-hole. Last one. Am I the a-hole for cleaning out the medicine cabinet? I, 57-year-old male, have been married to my wife, 52-year-old male, for 30 years. Today, while my wife was at work, I decided to clean out the medicine cabinet. I noticed that there were a lot of medications that were expired and lots of repeats. For example, we had 4 bags of cough drops, 3 bottles of ibuprofen, etc. I decided to throw away the expired medication and throw away the extras. As I did so, I made a video of the process and pointed out the expiration dates on all of the medications and pointed out the repeats. I videoed myself throwing these items away and explained calmly why these medications needed to be monitored more closely in the future. The video is about 3 minutes long. I then sent the video to my wife so that she could see what I did. I was surprised when she called me back very upset, asking why I hated her so much. She accused me of trying to shame her and said she couldn't understand why I was being so hateful. She told me that if I had been so concerned about our medication cabinet that I should have been monitoring it on a daily or weekly basis, and that if I was that concerned about cleaning out the medicine cabinet, I could have just done it without making a shame video. I told her that I was not attempting to shame her, but rather to inform her. She told me that she showed the video to some of her coworkers and they agreed with her that I was the a-hole. So who is right? Am I the a-hole? She's right. It does seem a little shameful. Like he's like shaming her that there's a lot of expired medicine in the cabinet. And I just find it odd that he decided to make a video instead of at dinner that night, sitting down there, be like, yeah, I cleaned out the medicine cabinet. A lot of the medicine was out of date. You know, it's kind of dangerous. So I thought of like taken away. If he had just brought it up that way, it would have been so much better than him filming it and being like, yeah, well, this is the med, this is like expired, blah, 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 blah. This is why it is not good that this is in here. And I just think, like, I get it. I get how, like, why she would see it that way. I know he didn't have any bad intentions. That was not his intention. He just wanted to inform her and show her what he was doing, he was going through, and what he looked at, whatever. I get it. I get the intentions that he had. He had good intentions. So, in a way, I can't really call him the a-hole when he didn't have bad intentions behind it. Like, I know a lot of these people don't have bad intentions, and sometimes they still end up being the a-hole. I can't tell if I want to call him the a-hole or not. He seems like he had the good intention of it. Like, it wasn't necessarily bad. I don't know. I feel like he could have approached it, though, in a different way. So, I feel because of that, maybe he is. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys think. Is he the a-hole or is he not? Because I can't tell. Well, anyways, guys, that's going to be it, guys, for today's video. Please give it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!